This is a Bible that Scott and Bill gave me in 1988. It says, "Don't ever give up on Jesus, Chip. He'll never fail you." 1988, February 1st. Yeah. Awful.
I feel different ever since I came to Youth Dynamics because I went here during this Easter thing, and then I fell in love with Youth Dynamics. Just people that are really cool around there that won't judge you for who you are and stuff. And I started reading the Bible a lot. What I discovered about God's love is that how precious it is, and his past. It's it was scary but cool about how he died and stuff.
Well, it was 1968 in February, and Paul was selling life insurance at that time. He went to see a pastor. He went in and talked about how he needed life insurance. And when he finished, the pastor looked at Paul and said, "I have a different kind of life insurance I would like to share with you." Our marriage was very rocky at that time, and the pastor came for a year to our home and did counseling with us and scripture, and made a huge difference in our relationship. And of course, we started going to church. There were quite a few high school students there, and they started to come to our home. And then the pastor asked Paul and I if we would be in charge of the high school. So that's what we did. And pretty soon our 900 square foot home was wall-to-wall high school students. There were 124 kids who came to Christ that year. And we had such a heart because no one had ever shared with us that God was real. We really felt called to minister to high school kids, and we had a heart for Anacortes. Finally, Paul and I prayed that if God would supply us with $200, that he would quit the life insurance business and we would go full-time by faith. The next day, we received a $200 check, post-dated Friday. Looking back, during that time, it was so unique, so unique.
We were actually some of the youth that first came through. We were part of the choir that they put together, that we would sing, and we would go to prisons. And they would have us sing in front of prisons or little churches like up in Lyman. We'd stand up, Paul Evans would look at us and say, "You, testimony." And we'd go, we gotta say something.
We were area directors. I came on in 1980. I just knew that God really wanted me to work with young people. And so that's what I came back to do at Youth Dynamics. I think our plan, our desire was to really have an impact on the schools, on the school campus, and work with, as a parachurch youth ministry, we were reaching out to the kid that's out there, kind of out there the furthest, There was one or two churches
No
that had
youth pastors.
no youth pastors at that time in the town.
It wasn't something I was seeking to do. It was one of those things I volunteered, and then the next thing I know, Paul Evans is saying, "Hey, KK, how about you come on as a girl staff?" And
Okay.
I'm like, okay. The culture was easy for us. We would go on campus. You had to grow a mustache because he looked too much like one of the students, and girls were hitting on him. And
No,
they wouldn't believe us if we were saying that we weren't in high school still.
With Reach Out Expeditions starting up there too, that was another opportunity for us to use the out of doors to share with the love of Jesus with the kids there and there. And there's a program there that was called the Polar Bear Expedition. We had an opportunity where counselors at the high school would give us these boys and girls that were kind of at risk, I guess they could say, or were kind of falling behind in school and different things, and so we partnered with them to take them on this polar bear expedition. That's where Chipper comes in.
I grew up in Anacortes in low-income housing, and my mom was, a single parent. She'd be working, and I would get in a lot of trouble because she'd be sleeping during the day, and then she'd work at night or whatever, and we ended up just making poor choices, and then you go to school and You know, not really. I still don't really like school, so it's not like that's ever changed for me. You know? So I didn't put any effort in, you know, and I just got into drugs and, you know, I don't know, you know, and Mrs. Caberly, my counselor, said that I should seriously consider going to this polar bear expedition. And I'm like, getting out of school for a week, I'm in, you know. So we do it, and I think I went 2 or 3 years. Like first year was just clowning around with friends of mine, and the second year, but there was always a message, you know, like I told him over the years. I know I had a seed planted from the moment I went camping or sleeping in snow caves by yourself.
Yeah.
You know, who does that? This guy. It's a great idea, but it was actually really fun, and you know, you were warm, and you know, but every night before bed, it was the very same question was, you know, what's this wall between you and God? You know, why don't you go think about that? And I think it was like 2.5 days or 3 days we'd sleep in one by ourselves to kind of give ourselves time to think.
When you're in high school, even though you're in a church home and you have Christian friends, it still can feel very lost. It feels very overwhelming. And to have people that you look up to that are mentors, that they were a presence in the high school, and they were these very loving, safe places. It was such a comfort because it wasn't easy even just being a believer. You needed to feel like you had this community. Camaraderie. And it was a fun place, a safe place, and a place where I knew I could invite my friends into this community. It still has had such a huge impact on my life. So thank you for all you guys did and continue to do.
55 years, I can't believe, you know, all the water under the bridge, through it all. God has been so good. And I'm very thankful for being able to have a huge impact with this community through Youth Dynamics.
Well, and I would say too that Paul Evans, he saw something in us too. I didn't start YD thinking that this was my calling, but then God put that calling on me.
One of my most favorite moments with a student was this young man who started coming to our drop-in center, and he was there the very first day. He was there every single Wednesday, and he would always sit in the same seat. And so I started to notice him, and I would sit down next to him and just ask him some questions about life. What is he interested in? What is his family? Does he have any siblings? Those kind of things. And he would sit there on his phone and share little bits of information each time. And this went on for a year. I would greet him every day by his name, yell it out as he came in the door. And that's what I saw, is that he longed to have somebody notice and give him value. And eventually, I got to sit down right next to him and share about somebody who loved him way more than anybody else could. And that day, he decided to start a relationship with Jesus. It was not an event. It was not something planned, but it was so sweet. And I just feel like this generation, more than any, is longing for just that.
I grew up in a Christian family where my parents loved Jesus. But I didn't know if that was what I wanted to do with my life. You know, it had to become my own. And it was through my journey at YD where I decided I too was going to follow Jesus. Once I graduated, I came on staff with Youth Dynamics there in Anacortes. The skate park was my main mission field, and so I worked with a ton of kids down there at the skate park. I'll tell you, they were lonely, they were abandoned, they were searching. Many of them were using drugs already or looking for thrills in other ways. We saw a lot of great things happen, kids giving their lives to Jesus, following the Lord. And we saw a lot of heartbreaking things where kids made really bad decisions and ended up going off the rails big time. One of those kids that was not a success story at Youth Dynamics at all just reached out to me literally last week on Instagram. He went through, after high school, about a 20-year drug abuse stint. He's been a drug addict that whole time, but he reached out to me letting me know that he is almost 5 years clean now. He's married and he has a new baby who's about 18 months old. And he wanted to reconnect and talk about life again like we used to do. What an awesome deal. I mean, I didn't do anything special. It is just what happens when you take adults who love Jesus and you put them into a room of kids or a skate park of kids who need Jesus. God moves in amazing ways. I think Youth Dynamics, its purpose, its mission, and the impact that Youth Dynamics is having across the whole Pacific Northwest is just as relevant today as it was in the 90s, as it was in the 70s. I just think this organization is phenomenal and continuing to make a huge impact in the lives of young people.
I'm overwhelmed. I look back and I think of the pastor who stood in the gap of a very young couple. The amount of God's work in our individual lives and the lives of all those students, realizing that our choices, we make hundreds of choices a day. That's so important to the students now. Are they going to finish high school? Are they going to go to college? Are they going to take drugs? Are they going to be an alcoholic? I ask all myself that and realize that we are a gap to these people, to these young people. You never know what you're going to say or what you do that's going to have an impact. Whether you're running around the track, whether you're praying on your knees, whether the teenager is so depressed you think they're going to be suicidal, staying in the moment. And that's what Youth Dynamics is really about. It's about the students. It's not about us. It's about the students and the relationship with Jesus. That's really what it's all about. It's not complicated. God's the center. Jesus paid it all.